Alright, so what I'm about to say may or may not show my bias towards a specific genre, but I think RPGs have evolved the most out of any genre. Like every game, they started as pixel art, but still made their worlds feel immersive, and then they jumped to pre-rendered backgrounds and you could see these worlds in a whole new light. Then finally, in the age of 3D, these fantastical worlds breathe new life and are the most immersive they have ever been. And I guess someone else was interested in that evolution because Nicholas Canassi decided to pursue that idea for a game jam, which if you don't know what that is, it's basically a friendly competition where you're given a theme and a set amount of time to make a game. The theme for the game jam he participated in was evolution, hence the idea. Nicholas Canassi then went on to win first place, and Evoland reached 300,000 players within a couple months. Due to the success of his small little game, he decided that his studio's first commercial release would be Evoland, but expanded upon to have more playtime. So let's jump into the so-called Evolution Land. So off the bat, I'm gonna say that Evoland definitely feels more like an experience than a game. Not because it'll change your life or anything, but because if you're not a fan of old school RPGs and adventure games, then there's not really much here for you. The overall game is fine. It feels clunky and the puzzles in combat are pretty easy, with the only difficulty coming from the clunky controls. However, the quote-unquote story and exploration kept me engaged for the roughly 2.5 hours of my playthrough. The game starts as essentially a Game Boy game with nothing but a single direction to go and a chest which gives you another direction. And most chests you open from then on will evolve the game world around you until you get to full 3D with pre-rendered backgrounds. And riddled throughout your journey is a ton of references to games like Final Fantasy, Zelda, and Diablo. It also pokes fun at those games too, but you can tell it's done by someone who actually plays and loves these genres. Like there's a whole bit where you need bombs to progress, and to get them you have to go back and forth through this whole town talking to every person until they finally give you bombs. That's something you just couldn't poke fun at unless you actually play these games. Hell, there's even a pretty competent ripoff of Triple Triad. The story also only serves the purpose of making jokes, hence why I put it in quotes earlier, because it's not really much of a story. You're just supposed to enjoy the references and laugh at the gags. There's not really much to talk about. I mean, I could sit here and pick apart every flaw with the game, but that defeats the purpose of Evoland. It's not trying to be a good game or overstay its welcome. It's just trying to give a fun comedic adventure to people that love RPG and adventure games, which I would say it succeeds at. Evoland also succeeded financially, or so I presume, given that 2 years later a much more ambitious sequel would come out. Evoland 2, or to give it its full legal name, Evoland 2: A Slight Case of Space-Time Continuum Disorder, takes everything from the first game and, well, evolves on it. Instead of continuing down the parody route, they decided to give Evoland its own identity, for lack of a better term. Obviously, like, the whole evolving thing sets it apart, but everything else uses other games as a backbone to tell a comedy story, so nothing feels entirely original aside from how it's presented. However, Shiro Games decided to create an actual plot with their own characters this time around, and it's a fairly decent story on top of being a pretty competent time travel story. Evoland 2 also starts as a Game Boy game, with G being put through an eerie training session where a mysterious voice is telling him what he feels and that a single fuck up can bring about the end of time. But let's not dwell on that, as we got more colors now. You find out that the machine also took all your memories, so you and Fina go to where Kuro was found, which leads to having some of their bits taken away. And if that wasn't enough, they get thrown into the Chrono Trigger reference after ramming some mammoths, but thankfully the pair runs into Menos, who helps them break out, and soon after, everyone finds out the Magaliths transport them through the past, present, and future, which spirals into a mission to gather the 5 fragments of the magic key to prevent your town's destruction in the future. Unfortunately, doing so isn't all sunshine and rainbows, as you'll go through dungeons, solve puzzles, and fight bosses. The puzzles are actually pretty decent, and some are good brain twisters, at least for my dumbass, and a few were pretty unique, like traveling through different eras of time to make your way through a forest, or an entire section literally dedicated to puzzles, and completing all of them gives you a gold star. Yeah, Evoland 2 never gave me reason to go out of my way to grab chests, since most awarded me with goop or stars, and both are effectively useless. The goop makes potions, but the game is not hard enough to need constant potions, so I had goopy pockets the whole time. However, there are a plethora of references from many different games and various other media that are not very subtle, like at all, but that didn't stop me from wojacking at my screen anytime I came across a reference. The longer runtime of Evoland 2 allows even more genres to be used, from a tactical RPG, a fighting game where you fight against a prophet that almost says the N-word about 50 times, or a turn-based RPG. All of them get their time to properly shine and feel like proper care was taken to make every one of them feel as authentic as possible, although I think a whole 15 minutes of a shoot 'em up is a little much, but it's also not my favorite genre, so maybe it's a reasonable amount of time if you enjoy them. The end of a genre or dungeon usually results in a boss fight, with the occasional one sprinkled throughout, and I enjoyed a majority of them as each of them were pretty unique and fit within their genre. Unfortunately, they have varying degrees of quality. Some are fun and memorable, like the snowman fight, or when this bitch goes Super Saiyan, but then you get fights like Plum, who is very frustrating because she jumps around constantly, so it's practically impossible to hit them with bombs, and her jumping around makes it very hard to attack her with your sword, and touching her deals more damage than Plum's actual attacks, and Captain Yababa is just boring. The characters are decent, but I never felt that attached to them, as any kind of emotional moment was quickly brushed off by a joke or from the group deciding they need to leave, but outside of that, the jokes were pretty alright. Nothing that got a hearty laugh out of me, but I at least chuckled at most of them, and it's easily where the writing shines the most. Evoland is one of the most unique series, and honestly it feels like they've still just scratched the surface of what they could do in another installment. Like, a lot has changed in the industry since Evoland 2 came out, so there's even more genres and games to reference, as well as more jokes to be made. There's also one thing I want changed in a potential sequel, which is being able to choose which era I travel to, because the amount of times I accidentally went to the wrong era was obviously enough for it to be a complaint. Even if we never get another Evoland game, I'm okay with that, as what they made is pretty special. I mean, what other game besides Smash Bros has this many of your favorite characters in it? And while I have plenty of qualms with both games, that won't stop me from coming back every once in a while just for some good vibes and chuckles. Speaking of good vibes, I think it's about time to give you a release date for the next big project I've been working on. Enjoy!
By coming to this place, you can save the world. Save it from the slow demise that is its fate. Can you take me to Elysium?
I'm in. Let's go to Elysium. I'll take you there myself.